First time OBS Studio decided to crash on me, which was a little bit concerning, but looks like we're actually live now. So let's tweet out that we're live. All right, perfect. That's all done. I realize I don't actually have this set up yet. Let's get this done as well. Pop out. I wanted it to be right in the center of the microphone, but it's like, you could either be white, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. I'll just move the microphone. And dark mode. Okay, so we have this. Let's go to the repo and take a look at where we are. We're continuing to work on the minigrep project from chapter 12, which is sort of like a summary of what's going on. So, learning Rust. Yes, one question that I had is, what does a panic look like from the user's point of view from a compiled app? And I think that we can maybe answer that at a later time from a different sort of test and application. However, we are now here at this calling config new and handling errors. And right, because what I can see that they're doing right away here is saying, okay, we're not going to panic. We're instead going to just print out the error message and then exit with a non-zero exit number. So for those of you who don't know Unix or Linux and how the exit works, an exit with an exit number of 0 is a successful run. And anything more than 0, so like 1, 2, 3, 1,000, those are all unsuccessful. And it makes it really easy to do like if checks or anything else. If the exit condition is 0, we're good. Otherwise, and then the other thing that we can do is have exit numbers that mean something and set those somewhere in the program so that people can use that properly. Okay, so it looks like to handle the error case and print a user-friendly message, we need to update main to handle the result being returned by config new, as shown in listing 1210. We'll also take the responsibility of exiting the command line tool with a non-zero exit code from panic and implement it by hand. A non-zero exit status is a convention to signal to the process that called our program that the program exited with an error state. So yes, we're going to print. We're going to find out. Now here they're doing unwrap or else. We could also do the match for it. Well, we could try unwrap or else because that's new. So let's go ahead and get our code. Let's see, learning Rust, chapter 12, grep. And we also want to look at the state of everything, right? So if I do, everything's working, right? Yes, it is. Perfect. Okay, so the other question we had was, in main, am I still getting the red squigglies from minigrep grep? And it looks like no is the answer, but that was still a little bit odd that we got it. So is a little bit upsetting to me. Okay, so we have our config right now, and we're just unpacking it with this, but we don't really want to do that. We want to handle this with a little bit better error handling than just this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove our result that we have here because we don't need it if we're going to handle this right away. We can add it back at a later time if we really want it for something else. Miguel, welcome to the stream. Good morning, at least for me. Which means we don't need to return an empty OK anymore. So now we're going to do this dot unwrap or else. And now this says op here. Oh, we don't need this arrow. That's what it's yelling about. So from what I can tell, op is a closure. And we kind of see this right here. This this closure. I sort of think of it as like a lambda function that we're going to be doing. This is the else. So unwrap or else, and then we'll say, okay, incoming into here, in between the pipes, is going to be our incoming parameter, and then to the right of here, just like what we have, is now a block of code that we can run. If it's a single line, we can just run it in a single line. Otherwise, we have to do blocks here. So, all right. So what we're gonna say is, one question is, do I have access to the error message here? So I would love to maybe print line. I don't know what this error is, but let's just print the error, followed by a process dot process. That's node. We want to do process exit. Process exit. One is fine for right now. I would love to maybe figure out. Okay. Mismatch types, expected struct, minigrep, grep config, found nothing. Isn't this supposed to return on its own? So yeah. Okay, yeah, it is. A print line with the error coming in here. So it is the string. Process at exit 1, that config equals this. Use standard process. So we do need to bring that in. That was a very interesting error message that they gave us because it had nothing to do with process. It was what was going into config, which was very, very odd what VS Code has been giving me recently with error messages. Okay, so with that, we should say like there was an error collecting. Actually, I don't even know if I need that. I think I can just do this, just print this error out, and then we'll exit with 1. And then potentially, I would love to have some kind of like error, maybe either an error enum or an error struct, and then we're passing that in, so it has the code that we want to exit with and the string, like the message that we want to exit with, and then we could just use those. But that might be a completely future thing and not this project. Okay, so let's actually try this for real with by missing one of these things. Actually, I think that's down here. Let's actually just try not passing enough things in. Not the right amount of arguments, expected 2, got 1. And that just completely exits right there. If we check the exit condition here, so echo $? We have 1. So that's perfect. We're fine with that. In this listing, we've used a method we haven't covered before, unwrap or else, which is defined on result TE by the standard library. Using unwrap or else allows us to define some custom non-panic error handling. If the result is an OK value, this method's behavior is similar to unwrap. It returns the inner value OK is wrapping. However, if the value is an error value, this method calls the code in a closure, which is an anonymous function we define and pass as an argument to unwrap or else. We'll cover closures in more detail in chapter 13. For now, you just need to know that unwrap or else will pass the inner value of the error, which in this case is the static string not enough arguments that we added in listing 12.9 to our closure in the argument error that appears between the vertical pipes. The code in the closure can then use the error value when it runs. We've added a new use line to the import process from the standard library. The code in the closure that will be run in the error case is only 2 lines. We print the error value and then call process exit. The process exit function will stop the program immediately and return the number that was passed as the exit status code. This is similar to the panic-based handling we used in listing 12.8, but we no longer get all that extra output. Let's try it. So we already tried that and run. There is some, I think my neighbor is running a weed whacker right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the window. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So we already tried this code. Extracting logic from main. Now that we've finished refactoring the configuration parsing, let's turn to the program's logic. As we stated in separation of concerns for binary projects, we'll extract a function named run that will hold all the logic currently in the main function that isn't involved with setting up configuration or handling errors. When we're done, main will be concise and easy to verify by inspection, and we'll be able to write tests for all the other logic. Listing 12.11 shows the extracted run function. For now, we're just making the small incremental improvement of extracting the function. We're still defining the function in main RS. So what are we doing? We're now that we finished refactoring the concerns to the program's logic, as we stated in separation concerns, we'll extract a function named run that will hold all the logic currently in the main function that is not involved with setting up configuration or handling errors. When we're done, main will be concise and easy to verify by inspection, and we'll be able to write tests for all the other logic. Interesting. Okay. So run config. Okay. I think I'm getting what they're doing. So all of this stuff right here is what they're saying. We're gonna put this into the library, I think. And that's where we're going to put, okay, so in our library, which is like the minigrep here, we need a run function that we pass the config into, and then it will open up another function here. So that would need to be a public function. Can we... And so that's the question, is like, would that be a library function, or would run really be a would run might be like a function down here that runs the library stuff? I sort of like am getting the idea, and I think I vaguely remember reading somewhere else that we put run into the library as well, and then all of this stuff goes in there. And so that way we get, okay, we get our arguments, we get our configuration, and then we call run. So like it would be the equivalent of this here. We would say, where is it? Minigrep grep. So it'd be grep run, and we'll pass it the config in like that. And then maybe we get the result and print that out. But let's not actually use that for right now. Let's sort of like think about what we want. They do put run in the library in the book. Okay, well then that's what we'll do here. So we'll just sort of figure out how to do it ahead of time. Can we test the run function? The testing the run function feels like more of an integration test to me. So I'm not gonna do that right now. Okay, so pub/struct config, implement config. I think what we want to do is, so pubmod grep. So we're going to have a pub function run, and this is going to take the config, which is a type config. Can I do that? I think I can. Is it going to return anything? I don't actually think that this returns anything because it just runs and then like we'll print the stuff out to the screen. This will run like this. Okay, so we have config. Okay, so unused variable config, and the type seems to be okay for right now. Then we're gonna say, okay, we have this config. What's the first thing that we want it to do? Well, we now need to move all of these files over. So we need to open the file. So this will be an internal. Should we make it a completely different module? So like file management instead of like the actual grep, or it could be put into here as well. But this would be internal. So we would we want to open up a file. I see you fixed that nasty result that you put in main yesterday. Well, yeah, so what we did, the first thing we did today was we made the error a little bit better. So now it prints out and then does process.exit instead of just panicking and crashing back to the OS. Okay, so where do we want to go with this? Implement config. We can create a completely different module for like the file management part of it. I feel like this is going to be a module for like the core running of it, and then we have a file management. Maybe that's what we should do, is just have like pubmod grep, and oh, how does it work? I could do something like down here, like mod files. File management as its own mod. But then if I do that, I need to file not found for module file management. Name the file either management rs or file management / okay, mod rs inside the directory source. So perfect. File management. So we come in here, we're in source. We're gonna create a file management.rs file. And in doing so, in our library, that should make this go away. Maybe. File not found for file management. Name the file either file management.rs inside the directory source. So I did that. Maybe I can rerun it, and I wonder, maybe it can't find it because there's no code inside. So cargo, this is a binary. I'm pretty sure you don't need the mods. They're only when you do cargo -- lib. Well, when you do cargo lib, it's like the same thing as cargo bind. It just sets up the initial structure, but then we're still like, it still follows the same rules. I think by doing the mod, I'm actually telling it that it can go find it in another directory, like in another file. So I'm not putting the same content in that same file. That's what I believe that I'm doing, but I could be wrong. Okay, so cargo could run the tests. They're structured completely different. The tests still run. Cargo run. Okay, so I am not getting, like, this is not throwing an error, at least out there. So I think maybe we're running into the same. Yep. I have to reopen. Nope, it's just unhappy. Well, so my idea was that this is mod file management. Do we have to do another mod file management in here? Oh, it's not. Don't save. I think what I really have to do is file management. I don't want this open. I want to create a new folder named file management. And inside of that, we're going to create a file named live.rs. I think that's what it was telling us here. Yes, that's how it found it. Now in here, I can do mod file management. I think that's how it works. But specifically, we want to grab the testing stuff from here. So config tests. And then we're going to use this hash test. So mod tests. Fun I found for. Okay, never mind. We're back to this. Name the file either inside filemanagement.rs or filemanagement/modrs. That's the problem is. It's modrs inside the directory source. So this needs to be renamed modrs. Will you go away now? Maybe. Maybe yes, maybe no. Save. Nope, it's still upset at me. Okay, so we have our mod tests, and then we can use create a new test, and this is going to be a function. So what are we testing here? We're testing that we can open a file. So we're probably also inside of here running the super, like that command. So we can do expected bang. What did I do here? Use super. That's what it is. Okay, so function open file. Or I guess it should open a file. Okay, so this is our test here. We're again not really getting any major errors here, so it does seem to be happy. This public function run, I don't think we really need to run that specifically right now, so we don't need to create that. I think it's more of, okay, we want to create and pull this right here open first. So we're going to run that function. We're going to pass in a file name, and we're going to get a file handler back. It's going to be mutable file handler. We can give ownership back to that, back to the calling function. So we probably don't need to worry with references or anything like that. So we're going to pass it in a file name. So it should open a file. So what I'm thinking of is whatever module this is, and I don't think we need to set this up as like to use a module. I think we could just put them all in here. So use super : : star will be whatever functions we define up here. So function, it should open a file. What should we call this function? It should be file open. So let mute file equals file open, and we're going to pass it in. What does it need? It needs a file name of some kind. So what do we have here? poem.txt. poem.txt. Well, I guess the other thing is, do I need to test file open? Like if I know that the file is correct, I guess I need to test that the error handling, like the errors that come back, are useful. I don't need to test that it can open a file because that should already be tested by the core Rust team. I guess what I should really test is to make sure that this is returned, either error opening a file or error reading the file, to give like good error messages. I think that's what I've got to work with here. So we're going to open up the file, and if there's an error, we're just gonna have to figure that out. So let mute file equals file dot open. Do I want to use that dot expected or else, or do I want to use a match, and then we'll deal with the actual error at that point in time? Because file open is a result, right? No, it just, well, it is because expect. We're using expect, so it's unwrapping here. So we expect maybe a custom error message instead of error opening a file, which will be part of this. Or maybe we don't care about it. Like the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking like we don't need to do all of this stuff because like for the most part it's tested. The only thing we'd be testing is a string literal that we put it in. That could be covered by an integration test. So let's just do that then. All right, so we have file management mod rs. I'm just going to delete this entire folder. We don't need it. We also in lib don't need this mod file management. We're putting this into run. So I wonder if I can do an integration test for run with that. That might be interesting, like do test-driven development in that way. So let's go. I need to go remember how to do integration tests. even though it was just like yesterday. So Rust integration test. The test module, integration tests. So we have a test directory. Okay, test directory at the top level of project next to source. Okay, so we can do that first. That's in source. Here, new folder, tests. Okay. Cargo knows to look for integration test files in this directory. We can make them, let's see, blah, blah. Let's create an integration test. Create a new file named integration test rs. Oh, and if I remember correctly, any rs file is going to be an integration test in here. So really what this will be is maybe new file, it'll be minigrep.rs. And the first thing we need to do is extern create adder. So we need to pull it in just like we were in main. So extern create minigrep. And then, but we're still gonna have this test here. And then we're gonna have function and the full thing. So function. So happy path of what the entire thing is gonna be. We're first starting with we call the function, we pass in the appropriate number of arguments to run. So we pass in a config, and then we get back the entire results. We get back the results of running this file content, which will be our entire file. So function get entire home. And I don't think there's any returns. It's exactly the same thing as another test. So it's going to be assert equal and all that stuff. So what we're going to want to do is use minigrep run. It doesn't exist, so we're going to run into problems when we do that. We're also going to need minigrep. So, oh, it's minigrep grep, isn't it? Minigrep grep. Minigrep grep, and then we could do like grep.run, grep. So the first thing we want to do is get a config. So let config equals grep config new, and the input is going to be it's two things, right? That's all we care about. When we're using config here, standard. Oh, it's a vector. It's a vector of three things. So first we need let input equals vec. I guess it's gonna be vec of like this. They need to be strings because we found that out the hard way. So you have to do string new, and we're gonna pass in. It doesn't really matter. It's gonna be slash this. I guess it could be like slash source slash main.rs. Doesn't really matter. And then we're gonna do the entire thing again. So string new. This one does matter. We're looking for something, and then finally the file name that we're looking into. Right here it's string new poem.txt. Okay, so we create our input here. We then pass in new input to config, like that. Config, if I remember correctly, is returning, we need to unwrap that. So dot, should I do unwrap or else? I think it's just unwrap because if it panics, that fails the test. So we'll unwrap it, which goes into config. So now that we have the config, we now need to call run with the config, and we expect to get back the text, because we're going to run these files. It'll create its file, crawl this. We expect to get file content back. So let file, let's see, let poem equals, and now we're going to, what will we get? We're going to call grep run, which doesn't exist. We're going to pass it in the config, and then we're going to unwrap that, because we're also going to have the same thing. If there's any kind of errors, we want to pass these on up to main for it to deal with. But for us, we're just going to unwrap, because if there's an error, we want it to panic at this point of time. Okay, so unwrap, panic like that. We now theoretically have the poem, and so now we can test to make sure the poem really is what we think it is. I'm curious as to whether or not we can just test this. Say, hey, if we copy you, and I say assert equal poem and that. I don't actually know if that's possible. I think I have to do a \n here. So maybe what I want to do is not have this. Well, okay. In the end, I'm gonna get something else, right? Like we're eventually gonna get just like one line of it, which will make it really, really nice, or like much better than this. So I'm okay for right now with going into poem and maybe creating another file here, which is single line .txt, and we're just gonna say hello world. This I can definitely test inside of here. Assert equal, that poem is equal to hello world. So we're not doing poem.txt, we're now doing single line. Does this give us more room? Okay, so we have single line, we're going in here. This is just going to be the text. Means you are the text. Get entire text. Okay, so by doing this, we should now get this entire text, assert equal to be that. And if it's not equal to this, then clearly we've got a problem. So this is, we'll change this as we actually implement real grep behavior. But that's sort of like one of the big things with test-driven development, is that it's not impossible to change the tests and be valid. It's more of, we write the tests to help us write the code, and then if the code needs to change, we change the test first. Let's go ahead and run this test and make sure that we get an error. So cargo test. Cannot find function run in module grep. So in a test minigrep, it attempted to run it. Function run is not there, so let's go ahead and create that. So in our library, we have pub function run, and there we go. Oh, I guess you meant string from on line 6. String new doesn't accept parameters, I believe. Oh, it doesn't? Oh, okay. I was hoping that it would. Let's see if we can get that error. We did. Okay, so it takes 0 parameters. So you're right. Let's go change these. This is string new. And we'll make this from. Save. Okay, let's try it again. Cargo test. This function takes 0 parameters, but 1 parameter is supplied for grep run. So that is 2. We're passing in config into run, so we need to come back into here and change that. So run takes a config, which is type config. So what else do we care about? Unused variable config, no method named Unwrap found for type this. Okay, so now we're getting into where we have to actually return type result. And what are we returning here? For run, if we return successful, it's actually just gonna be string here. So a string or an error, which should also be a string. Of course, we haven't actually returned what we're gonna do here. So let's start implementing that. Our first thing is let mute file equals file open, expect error opening the files. Okay, so we need to open the file. And we need to use standard fs file in order to do that. So let mute file equals file open and standard fs file. I didn't need a change. I need to come back to here. Where do I put uses in here? Do I put them up here? Like use standard fs file. Okay, so pub function run, change this. The first thing we want to do is attempt to open up the file. So let mute file, and it's mutable, right? That's, in fact, I could just grab this. We don't need you anymore because we brought you in. Bringing you as well. Okay, so let mute file equals file open. What are you complaining about? Expected enum standard result found absolutely nothing. That's perfectly fine. I think the biggest thing here is that we really want to match, don't we? We want to match this because if we get expect, we don't actually want to fully exit out. So match. Oh, and I matched on you here. We match on you. I'm going to do this. Okay, so we match on you, and then we have the arms here. So use of undeclared type or module file. So this is not the correct place to put it. We want to put you in here, don't we? So inside this module. Yes, that's where we want to put it. Okay, so inside of our match, we have a potential couple things to do. If it's okay, we're going to get the file, and we want to return the file. If it's an error, we're going to get the error, and we want to full out return, so which exits this error. And so by returning this error, it would head out as a result. So, of course, like it's error. It's telling me we're not doing it right now, because even though this is returning a result, that's only one potential path. This could also be a potential path, which means that it would not return anything at all. So let me file equals this. So now we have to handle the next thing, which is, okay, let me file content equals string new. We'll bring you in. So we have a brand new empty file, empty string. Then we read to string. We file, which is right here. We read to the string. We hand it in the mutable file content, which should change that. Then we have this entire expect read in a file, but we don't want to panic again. So let's go ahead and do the exact same thing that we did here, which is we want to match this. Of course, we don't care about returning anything now, because if it's okay, we just sort of deal with it. So this one, we only care if there's an error. So there's an error. We're going to return the error. Otherwise, if it's anything, I guess I can just do catch all, right? We don't really care what it is, right? Just gonna that. I'm not sure what the best way to handle a arm that I don't care about. Okay, so we run this, we match the file to string. Now file content should either be updated or we passed an error back to the calling library, and then we're able to just print these lines, which we don't really care about right here. So at this point in time, we're going to come back to here and we're going to return the file content. So except we can't do that because that's not a result type. We need to turn OK and put in the file content. Then that works. All right, so what do we got here? Expected structure, standard string, found standard IO error. Okay, so here, maybe for this one, we need to change this to the actual error, which is error opening the file. And here it's going to be the same thing. We're going to change this to error reading the file. No method named read to string found on type standard fs file in the current scope. Right, because we need to come back to here and we have standard IO prelude, I believe, which needs to be removed from here and put into the library. All right, so that makes all the errors in this file seem to go away. In our integration test here, we have assert equal that the text is hello. Otherwise, we have all these different panics, which we don't want to hit, but it will cause our test to fail if they do, because panics cause the entire thing to just fail. We want it to say hello world. So let's let's try it. Cargo test. Did not work. Okay, so what we got? Expected expression found reserved identifier underscore. So, right, because I didn't know what to do with the match arm there. What? Would it be just like an empty block that I deal with it? So that's in here. It's basically, we don't know what to do here. Would I just do this? See, I don't care about this. Let's just deal with it. Mismatch types, error, return, error, expected struct, standard string, string, found references. Okay, so these errors need to be full strings because that's what I'm putting in instead of, and I think that's okay with making them strings here. They were making them actual static. I'm curious about that. I wonder if that's, let's see, where was this? In run, they're putting a lifetime of static in here, so that way we wouldn't get these errors. Or we could just make them strings, which is right to here. If I put you and you, string from, then we'll go to the end, another parentheses, save, and let's run it again. Okay, so all the tests pass. We got a bunch of these warnings, which is unused variable error. But I think that's because we want to handle that in main when we actually use it. But our test passed. So I just to make sure that it's working correctly, I want to add like an a bang here to see that, okay, these are, it is grabbing that file correctly. So it did. Left was hello world and right was hello world bang. So perfect. We have an integration test, and then we use that to write the code that implemented what we had previously in main in here. So we have an unused config now, but now we can use this. So we have our config. Let's also think about how we want this to look. We have our arguments, we have our config. We now want to run the main stuff off of it. So it's going to be grep run. We're going to pass it the config that we have. We're going to get the text out of it. So home, we're going to say let text equals grep.run, and do I want to just match this and then print line different things? That might actually be best, is just go here and just say, okay, we're going to match grep.run config, and we're either going to get an okay, and which is going to be the text. And so in this case, we're going to print line, and we can now put in the text is what we're getting. Of course, otherwise we're going to get an error, and this is going to be the error text. We want to print line. We can just say what this error was. So error. And of course, for this error, we want to exit with a non-standard. We'll do a block here. We'll first print line error, and then we'll say process exit. Code will be maybe Like I could just do 1 for everything. Everything has a code of 1. Cannot find function run in module grep, but it's there. And we're not really returning anything. So I don't think we need to run that. Let's actually try running this. So first of all, we'll do cargo run. That should give us this error, not the right amount of arguments. So cargo run, we don't really care what we're looking for right now, so blah, but then poem.txt. And hey, we got it. Like it came right out. So that's that actually works. I'm getting the weird red squiggly of death again, where VS Code is just freaking out for no reason. But what did we do today? We actually ended up doing a lot, even though it felt like it was a sort of like a struggle and a slog. And we didn't add any new features. We just made everything a little bit more solid. So what have we done here? I created a new test, integration test in here called minigrep, which is running the entire thing. So we're bringing in the full crate, and then we're bringing in the library grep. We're then able to mimic us grabbing standard input, which gives us that vector of the 3 things, and then we create the config. Now we're using unwrap here because if there's an error, like we've already tested the config stuff on its own, so we don't need to worry about it too much. The unwrap here will cause an error, which will cause this integration test to fail if it does error out. And then we have an unwrap for text, which is okay. Let's now actually run everything, and then unwrap if that fails too. Now here we can basically choose things to do on purpose in the case that we want to see what the error messages really are. In real life, if I like pass in poem.tx, we should get an error here, which is error opening the file. So we could potentially not unwrap it, but rather test those error messages, make sure that they're exactly what we want them to be. Then in the final, we just assert equal that the text is equal to the actual text that we expect it to be. I created a brand new a file for us just for this test. That's 1 line. We're going to be changing this in the future to actually run, to expect the real things from it. So with that, we're getting pretty much to the end of the stream. So let's go ahead and update where we are. Let's also check the book. So I believe that we're at extracting logic from main. Even though we've done a whole bunch of this, we'll just go ahead and update this here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to close. I'm going to try this time. I'm going to close VS Code and reopen it here. The only reason I don't do this to begin with is because RLS really, is it RCS or RLS? Freaks out when you have so many different Rust projects that are not like at the baseline. Okay, so let's open up our readme. So currently at, what does a panel look like from a compiled app? We are, we haven't looked at that, so calling this, extracting logic from main. Let's click on that, and that gives us a new URL to go to. There we go. So this is our updated sort of like location, updated content of where we're at. I think we're getting close to the end of that project, which is pretty awesome. We have a README. This is everything that we've done here. So let's go ahead and stage this. What do we want to call this? It's extracted main functionality to a run function in lib.rs, and added an integration test. Oh no! Too many characters. Okay. Added. So extracted. You just delete that. Main functionality to. There we go. That works. Commit that. Send it on up to GitHub. Let's go ahead and find this and share it. I refresh, see the new stuff. There we go. Let's share this in chat with you for anybody who's watching the VOD, or if any of you want to go and take a look at the code right now. And with that, it is 8 o'clock, which is the perfect time for me to stop so I can go get ready for work. And I hope that everybody else is able to have a great day, whether it's at work or at school or wherever you're at. So I'm doing these Learning Rust streams every single weekday morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm doing them for about an hour until 8 a.m. As you can see. I have my code up here on GitHub. I have links to that from the stream description, but I'm also archiving the VODs of these videos over to YouTube and putting them into a Learning Rust playlist. There's links to Twitch, there's links to my Twitter, and there's links to the code on that learning on both the stream description here and in the VOD description at YouTube. I don't really. Oh yeah, if you're liking these videos and you want to get notifications when I go live, I generally do tweet out when I'm going live, but that's usually like at the time. If you'd also want to get an automatic notification from either YouTube when I archive or from Twitch when I hit that go live button, then go ahead and follow me on all the appropriate channels. There is a small chance that human intervention will cause me to not appropriately send the tweet out. But with that, I'm gonna go go do the rest of my day. And with that, I hope that you all have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.